Hello everybody, welcome back. It's Jen and I have another card for my Halloween series featuring the Gerda Steiner Designs Where's the Candy and Frightful Friends from My Favorite Things, which was released last year in 2016. So I'm featuring the Where Is the Candy stamp set from Gerda Steiner Designs. I am guest designing for them this month, so that is super exciting. And I thought that I would make a scene with this stamp set. I absolutely loved the kitty cat and his or her little dog friend, so I wanted to make sure that I had them front and center for this card. So I'm going to be doing a lot of stamping and masking. I stamped the masks on full adhesive post-it note paper prior to doing the video and fussy cut them out so that I didn't have to worry about that while the cameras were rolling. So I want the cat to be in the front and I want the dog to be a little bit behind him, so it looks like they're out trick-or-treating together, but they might be a little scared, so they're kind of huddled together. Once I get these on, I'm going to use the fence that's in the Frightful Friends stamp set. I wanted to give a little something extra to the background. I chose this little fence here for them to be standing in front of. And I'm going to stamp that a couple times because it is watercolor paper, so it's textured and sometimes requires a bit more stamping. And I did cut this panel a little bit wider than a standard A2 size card. I think I had this at 4.5 by 5 3/4. So I knew that I was going to be trimming this down, so I wasn't too worried that that one side of the fence didn't reach the end. Now I'm going to try to figure out where I want my sentiment, and I want to use the sentiment Trick or Treat. I just cut out this circle out of a punch, and I'm going to use that as a moon. So here I'm trying to figure out if I want the sentiment up by the moon. I really liked it in that right hand spot there, and that's where I decide to keep it, just for something a little different for me. I normally wouldn't put the sentiment there, but I did like how it looked in the end. So I am going to heat emboss this. So I'm using my Versamark ink, which is a really sticky ink. And I'm going to make sure that it is nice and inked up so that it is a crisp sentiment. And I'm going to be heat embossing this in white. So this will resist the distress ink that I'm going to be using for the background. And you just want to make sure that you don't have any left on the paper. So I'm just going to use a little paintbrush here to wipe off some of that. I did use a embossing buddy, but there was a little bit still left. So once I got that cleaned up, I'm going to heat this. I also just try to dry the ink as well because I used VersaFine Black Onyx ink. It's a pigment ink and it takes quite a while to dry, and I wanted to make sure that I didn't get ink everywhere. And I just noticed that the little mask on the puppy dog wasn't quite where it needed to be, so I wanted to fix that before I started. So now I'm going to work on the background, and I'm going to speed this up quite a bit because it does take a little bit of oomph or elbow grease to really get this blended well. I was hoping to have my new set of Distress Oxide inks in, but I hadn't, so I'm just using regular Distress ink for now. This is Bundled Sage, and that's what I'm going to use for the ground. I like this for a night scene because you can tell it's still green for grass, but it gives that darker color, which works well for bringing in blacks for night. So now I'm going to work on the sky, and I'm going to start here by using Shaded Lilac as the lightest color. This will really bring some brightness beside the images, and if I'd had more patience, I probably should have taped this down better, but that seems like too much work at the time, so I'm just going to let it kind of move around. I'm just using a piece of leftover watercolor paper here under my fingers so I don't get fingerprints on. And now I'm using some Wilted Violet and then bringing in the Seedless Preserves, which will blend nicely when I bring in the black soot. So just go back over a few times to make sure I get it blended the way I want it, and then I'm going to bring in the black soot just at the top of the card and at the side. And you can see I'm picking up some of the ink that's on my laminated sheet here, and I'm going to go over the bottom of the card as well, over the grass. And now I'm going back with the Seedless Preserves, and then the Wilted Violet, and then finally the Shaded Lilac. And I will have a really awesome purple Halloween sky. So now I'm going to use my Tim Holtz Distress sprayer. I'm going to spritz on some water here. I'm going to blot that up with a paper towel, and that will just give some texture to the background. And then with a dry part of the paper towel, I just made sure to rub off any of the ink that was on the sentiment, and just heating that with my heat tool. The masks were quite wet from the water, so I had to be careful as I was peeling them up. But now you can see the magic of this scene. So today I'm using my Zig Clean Color Real Brush markers. For the moon, I'm using a blue-gray, and I'm using a circular motion so that it kind of looks like when you look up to the moon, you can see circular patterns. I am going to bring in a light blue afterwards as well, but right now I'm working on the pumpkin with the orange, and I thought I would put some orange in the candy bucket as well. And I'm going to use two purple colors for the doggies treat bucket, the dark violet and the violet. And then for the cat, I'm using the black, and I'm using kind of a lighter black tone with the cat. I'm going to color the dog black as well. I didn't want to introduce any other colors, so I decided to have the kitty almost a gray-black and then the dog a deeper black. So you can see here I'm just putting on a little bit of the ink, and then I'm using a damp brush to watercolor. And so you want to make sure that you don't have too much water on your brush, or else it will be a little bit harder. I find it harder to blend because the paper gets too wet and the ink really disperses. So I'm going to do the little nose here black, and I wanted to leave a little white spot so it looks like it had a highlight. And then I decided to use black on the inside of the pumpkin as well. Again, I could have used yellow, but I was trying to stay with the colors that I already had at this point. So I thought the cat needed just a little bit more of a darker shade of black. And then for the ghost costumes, I'm using light gray. And I'm doing that just around the edges, and then I'm going to make sure to blend that out really well, just with some plain water. So after I get the ghost costumes done, I'm going to go back and I'm going to fill in the rest of the candy in the bucket. And then I decided that the animals needed some color in their eyes. So I'm going to actually give them both some blue eyes. If I had realized I was doing this sooner, I would have left more room to do blue in the candy bucket as well, and I felt like the blue needed to be carried over somewhere else, so I decided to put some of the light blue in the moon. And again, just using circular motions to really make that look like a moon. For a final touch, I wanted to use the bat from the Frightful Friends stamp sets. And so I stamped 3 of those on the card, and then I'm using my Spectrum Noir glitter overlay brush to add some sparkle to the ghost costumes. I'm going to get out a stitched rectangle die. This is a Lawn Fawn die. And after I did this, I noticed, you can see right here, there must have been some ink, distress ink, on my cutting plate from the last card that I did, and I didn't realize it, so it got all over this card. So I left this in to show you that stuff like this happens. I was not happy, but I tried to blend it out as best I could, and honestly, it just looks like the dog and the cat got a little dirty getting their costumes on. It doesn't look too bad, but I did recreate this card after for the still shots, so you'll see that in the still shots at the end of the video, the ghost costumes are nice and white, not dirty looking. So I stamped the Happy Halloween sentiment that came in the Gerda Steiner Designs Where's the Candy stamp set. I absolutely love the script font of it. And now I'm just adhering this panel to my card base. So after I use the rectangle die, it's now a standard A2 size card of 4 1/4 by 5 1/2. Just had to trim up that little bottom there. I did use Canson XL watercolor paper for the card base as well. And I brought the light here to see if I could get the shimmer to go. Not sure if it did, but here are the still shots. I hope you enjoyed this card, and I will see you all in the next video for my Halloween series. I hope you're enjoying. Bye!